So I recently decided that I'd like to have more herbs available to cook with than I can get from my local supermarket. Herb seeds are really cheap, so I decided to build some shelves to put on the windowsill of my apartment where I can grow some herbs myself. I've decided to make 3 shelving units. I'm going to make them 2 feet wide, 3 feet high, and 6 inches deep. Obviously, you can make it whatever size you want. That'll make my shelves 24 by 5 inches, and I'm going to support the shelves by cutting some pieces on the sides like this. I decided to make my shelves out of cedar because it's cheap. It's only $3 per board foot. It's also very resistant to moisture. As you can see, these 12-foot long pieces, these are 6 by 2s by 12 feet. These are only $30 each. I bought 6 of them, but then only used 5. From the 12-foot long cedar planks, I machined all of this wood here. There are 6 pieces here for the legs, 1 leg on each side, 3 shelves. There are 18 pieces here for the edges of the shelves, because again, 9 shelves, 2 edges, 18 pieces in total. And then I milled these pieces for the actual shelves themselves. These are 1/2 inch thick by 5 inches wide, and that's what I had left over. My wood cost was about $150, but obviously you can make this shelf, these shelves any size you want. If you don't want them 2 feet wide, 3 feet tall, times 3 shelf units, of course that would reduce the cost. If you want to build a small one, you could probably do that with 1 piece of timber, and those 12-foot long cedar planks are only $30. Just because of how I chose to cut up my wood, I ended up with the shelves requiring these 2 pieces to be glued together, but I do have these edge bonding clamps, which are really useful. I think I can get three in at a time, and then they clamp like this and the coals clamp like that to keep them flat. So I can do 3 at a time, and hopefully it won't take that long to glue these up. So now I have 3 shelves in the clamp. Get the pieces just nicely lined up. And then when I tighten these down, not only does it squeeze the planks together, but it also puts pressure on from the top and the bottom to keep everything flat. So while the glue is drying on those shelf pieces, I'm going to make some of the edges. To make the sides that are going to support the shelf, essentially I'm just going to cut a piece out of here like this for the shelf to rest on. I'm going to cut these side pieces on my router table. As you can see, I've set it up so that the blade is going to cut at the correct depth. I will gradually move the fence back to take bigger and bigger pieces until I get all the way where I need to be. This is my first time working with cedar in a router table. And what I've noticed is it tends to produce these kind of long strips of wood that it cuts off, which is not what happens when you use it with a hardwood. And what that means is that my dust collection system is tending to get kind of blocked up. Luckily, I have these transparent dust collection tubes so I can see where the blockages are. And just by shaking the tube, it kind of moves the stuff along, and that's fine. But you do need to stop from time to time. Not let the blockage get too large. After cutting these rails on the router table, they now look like this. And if I take one of the shelf pieces and put it in place, you can see how that's going to work. I want there to be a slight lip here, so that when I put my plant pots on, they're not going to slide off or something like that. So when it comes to attaching these to the legs, my idea is to cut a dado of this exact size here into the leg. So that will slide into the leg, and then I can put a screw through from here, like that, into the leg to make it secure. So here I have 8 perfect sets of shelf support rails. Every woodworking project, of course, has to have a screw up. In this one, what happened was that the fence on the router table wasn't quite tightened down enough, when I was routing one of these, the fence moved back slightly and it cut them a little bit too deep. So I don't know what I'm going to do with these ones. I could go back to the spare 12-foot plank that I have that's up against the wall like that, and I could cut 2 more of these. That's kind of a hassle. Maybe I'll just live with the fact that that shelf's going to be a tiny bit deeper. I'm not sure yet. So it's going to be here. Mark it on the end and down the side. These are fantastic rulers. These ones with the right angle, they're great for making sure that the line on the face and on the edge are perfectly lined up. So now I'm going to use this big square here to make sure I've got all the bottoms of the legs lined up. If you don't line up the bottoms of the legs when you mark the positions of the shelves, you could end up with the whole thing wobbling a bit, you know, not being very stable. Mark it all the way across. And actually, I think I'll make that a knife line because I want to actually cut there with the saw. Okay, so the layout for the dados is done. I've got 2 knife walls across the face and some pencil marks down the side. Next I need to cut these out. So the best way to cut a dado by hand is to make some good deep knife walls like I have, and then to take a broad chisel and set it back, you know, a couple of millimeters away from the knife wall, and just take out a little wedge of wood like this all the way along. I'm doing this backhanded so that my elbow is not blocking the camera. It's a lot easier when you're not videoing at the same time. In fact, woodworking whilst videoing definitely makes the woodworking take twice as long. So the next step is the sawing. I have both Western style saws and also the Japanese pull saws. They both work. I vary which one I use from time to time. But anyways, having that knife wall means we can get the saw in exactly the right spot. I'm just going to get it opened up to the kerf of the saw. Okay, and what you want to do is go on the corner and go perfectly on the line down to the depth of the dado. And on the other side, like that. Now you can use that and the knife wall to make your way gradually across the piece of wood until you're at depth the whole way. Okay, I've gone all the way across. Now I need to do the same on the other side, but I'll just do the other side of the dado first. It's actually harder to be precise with using this kind of softwood than it is in a hardwood. It's down to the line here, and it's all the way across the width, so now I need to go to the other side, cut down the line to the depth, like that, on both sides. Okay, and I carry that across the width of the wood. both sides. Okay, next we need to chisel out the bit in between, and always shoot upwards so you don't end up cutting it too deep. We'll finish this with a router plane in a minute to make it exactly the correct depth. But this is just to get rid of the bulk of the wood. You never want to shoot through the end of the wood like that with the chisel, because it will break off fibres that you don't want to break off. Always come at it from both sides. Once we have it roughly to depth with the chisel, this is how we break out the router plane, which will get it to be exactly the same depth throughout. I've noticed with this cedar is it's very kind of fibrous. I mean, all wood is fibrous, obviously, but this tends to leave a lot of little, what I describe as like hairs, and they're difficult to get rid of. I noticed this at the router table too. They clogged up the dust collection on my router table because of all these little fibrous hairs that seem to get left behind. I guess that's a characteristic of this particular wood. It does fit, kind of, but maybe a little too tight. Maybe not. I want the shelves to be exactly 24 inches long, so what I'm going to do is create a spacer. I'll take these two pieces of wood that are just scrap, cut them to exactly 24 inches, and then use that to space the supports for the shelves. By cutting both of these pieces of wood together, I'm guaranteed that they're exactly the same length. Now I can use these spacers and some pipe clamps to clamp these two legs exactly the right distance apart. I may as well do the holes for the screws on the drill press. That way they'll all be in exactly the same spot. Okay, it's time to do some assembly. So I need to assemble these pieces like this. These pieces like this. And time to throw some screws in. These are number 8 2-inch construction screws. I think they'll be pretty good for this job. And the glue on the shelves is now dry, so I can run these through the planer just to make them nice and smooth. I use the adjustable stop on my miter saw to make sure I cut the shelves all to exactly the same length. And the shelves now just drop into place between the legs. Since my herb garden is a north-facing window, I'm going to install these grow lights. They've got self-adhesive backing on them. You just peel it off and I can stick it underneath the shelf, wire them all up, and that'll make sure that my plants have plenty of light all the year round. So here is the end result. I have a few different kinds of herbs growing here. The basil seems to be growing particularly well. I also have this automatic watering system, which is solar driven, and all you need to do is basically fill up this container of water from time to time. So the lights are automatic, they come on a timer, the watering is happening automatically. So now I just need to harvest the herbs whenever I'm cooking. I hope you enjoyed watching me make this herb garden. I certainly think I'm going to enjoy eating the herbs that are going to get grown here. And if you make one of these, let me know. I'd love to hear about it in the comments, how you got on with your herb garden. if you did it the same as mine, or if you did it a little bit differently, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Bye.